Welcome back to Seat Time. This is going to be the full test section from Test 6, which is the A-only or expert-only test section at the Leadbelt Enduro. We are taking off. I was on row 22 with Nick DeFeo, who did win his NE2 class. It was all kinds of dusty. Now again, guys, this is going to be just a full test section. So if you want to make sure that you see the full race recap, give yourself a subscribe, a thumbs up, a like, or whatever, a comment, so that when that video comes out probably next week, you can be ready for that. But looking here at test 6, you can see how dusty it is. And I promise you, somehow, whatever we're seeing here on the GoPro is way better than what I saw in the woods, which is nuts to say. One of the other things that was interesting is we did lose a rider from our row. So row 22 was a NE2 pro racer, 2 AA guys, an A250 guy, and an A open racer, and then little old me in the A45 plus class. So at the start of the day, there was a whole nother A racer in front of me the entire time, making all of the dust. So you can see right now how much dust I am accumulating. Now the racer that I'm closest to here at the start of test 6 is Keaton Noltkamper, and apologies if I pronounced that wrong. That is not what I am trying to do, and he is in the A open class. Throughout more parts of the race, which of course we'll go through in the full race recap, there were times that I could see him out in front of me and I'd get a little bit of pull from that. But to be honest, because of the dust, as you can see, when I would get close, I just couldn't see the trail and I couldn't figure out how to kind of bridge that gap that he had on me in earlier tests. I think that he was probably just getting tired, and so as you can see, I'm obviously staying on him a lot better in this test, but the dust sucks, man. So I do wind up passing him later on, but we'll get there here in a second. I could see Keaton kind of drop off to the left, you know, trying to watch his helmet, because seeing the arrows was really difficult to do in the dust. And I'm not going to lie to you, those were some of the more precarious moments in this test section, because the trail itself is a lot of fun. It's got a lot of flow. It does get very technical due to some of the rocks, some of the undulating terrain that is there. But in the long run, you can see these X's, the down arrows pointing, and sometimes you wouldn't see that and the terrain would just drop away from underneath you. So that's why it was so hard for me to be able to get on his rear wheel, to be able to make enough noise for him to know that it's like, in reality, dude, I really want to get past you because I can ride faster. It's just bridging that gap on him was extremely difficult. Yeah, TJ and his crew have been a lot of fun to hang out with and go chit-chat with when we get to the race venue there on Saturday. So I'm always saying hi to TJ if we're very close, in a way that I am either going to pass him or we're hanging out during different sections of an event. But as you can see, I passed mileage marker 44 right after I passed TJ, and that means that I passed him about a mile into this test section, which is kind of crazy because typically it was around 2 to 3 miles that I would catch and pass him. But in the long run, I know that the attrition rate was crazy high. So I looked at some of the numbers, and it looked like in test 1 of all the A racers that are going to race all 6 tests, right, looking at those classes, it was about roughly 100 racers that started test 1. or that had a score for test 1. And then looking at how many A racers had a score for test 6, it was about 75. So there was a 25% attrition rate throughout the day. That is crazy high. And I do know that I heard of a lot of injuries that happened throughout the day where racers would crash. Obviously, we know now at this point that Josh Toth in test 1 broke his femur and was needed to be airlifted out. Like, absolutely insane. I did make a post about, is there a time that it's too dusty and a race needs to be canceled? Again, that's not my feelings. That's just a question, because in the long run, the dust was pretty stinking gnarly. All right, Keaton, let's do this. We're almost a mile and a half, 2 miles in. If you guys are like me, watching that last little bit of trail probably made you extremely jealous, because that trail was amazing. And I know we're not complaining about the dust. When you show up for the race, you race the conditions that you're given. That is a given. That is the way this works. But man, this trail is so fun and it is so flowy, and the way that they laid it out with the undulating terrain, you kind of hit some rocks and then you don't hit some rocks, or back to some rocks. Guys, it is awesome. But Keaton, please keep the dust down. This was a weird one. My rear end kind of got kicked out by something, and then my front end kind of got kicked out by that branch that was on the ground, and then all of a sudden I'm facing the left. It was definitely an interesting situation to be in. I'm wondering if it was a little bit of the dust and just didn't see what was on the trail and where I was putting my tires, but in the long run, it happened. We had to keep moving ourselves forward. So we're a few miles in. We come up to this awesome section where we start to kind of lightly go downhill. Opens up just a little bit, but I love this, and I remembered it from last year for how technical it is. On the GoPro, of course, it looks extremely flat. The rocks don't look very deep, but in this section, you really need to stand up and kind of let the bike move underneath you, point it in the direction you want it to go, and just let it kind of lightly fall down the trail that they have laid out. But then, of course, there's this epic rock garden, and I have the footage from last year, and unfortunately, there's Keaton trying to pass Emma, unfortunately, fallen over. And of course, Emma's my friend. I'm like, dang it, Emma, I want to help. But in the long run, I knew she was okay. I could see that she was still moving. But in the long run, that I didn't ride that rock garden very good. When I typically attack in those type of situations, I make it harder or worse on myself. So what did I decide to do? I gave it a couple seconds. They were moving. They were getting out of the way or doing their thing. So I kept on doing my thing and kept on moving. I haven't had a chance to bridge the gap on Keaton yet, so I'm still eating his dust. Let's see, though, when I make that pass. I am trying so hard to make up just a little bit of ground so that I can get close enough to either rev at Keaton or make enough noise for him to realize that I'm kind of floating around back here. But this is how difficult the day was in almost every test section. And I know some people are like, man, all you do is complain. No, this is just what the truth is. And I call these things out because it helps me get a little bit better. And in the long run, by me doing that for me, hopefully it helps you get a little bit better. So take it as complaining, but if that's the case, then I don't know why you're still here. If you're learning something, that's why we go through this. But I still haven't had a chance to catch up to Keaton yet. He actually does make a mistake here in a little bit, chooses the wrong path, and I just zip on past him. But let's go catch him. Let's go get Keaton. I could tell that it was about to open up, so I tried to just lean off the brakes a little bit and try to catch him. And honestly, even though I knew that the dust wasn't going to be as bad because we were more in the open, you could see that the wind is a little bit better. Again, I just had so much trouble reeling him in, bridging that gap. But that just shows how close we were in speed. It's not that I am that much faster than him. It's just that at this time on the trail, where we're at in the day, that just goes like to the speed that we're both carrying. Going in and out of these sections, you can see how difficult it is on the GoPro, right? As it's trying to adapt to the changing light. This is the same thing for our eyeballs, man. The dust, the sunbeams, just everything. It was one heck of a crazy day. But that was me revving at Keaton. I had finally gotten close enough to where I was hoping that me revving at him would let him know, like, hey man, I'm here, I've been here, I'm still here. Like, please just give me a second to get by. And I know it would suck for him because then he would have to suck my dust for a little bit. But the hope, right, is that by him letting me by, that I would be able to then kind of lightly creep away from him and then hopefully pull out. And being the same speed, that's a tough call, and I get that. But it looks like back there he had taken a left and the trail had kept kind of going straight, so it gave me that opportunity. Of course, what did I try to do? I tried to open up a gap so that I could leverage no dust as much as possible in this test section. But then also, if I could pull away from him a little bit, then there was less chance of him sucking my dust. Of course, I make a couple mistakes up here. Keaton catches up. It wasn't as smooth as you could hope it would be, huh? I gotta say it again, this trail is awesome. If we would have had an inkling of moisture just to help keep some of the dust down, this day would have been so different. But again, we have to race the conditions that the race are held in. As we pass mile marker 47 and we have about 3 miles left, I'm coming up here, and of course, this is one of the mistakes that I make that gives Keaton a chance to kind of catch up. So at first, it looked like I was in the wrong spot. These rocks get me. I see these trees boom, the back end kind of slides out on me. And just because of this weird little shaly, marbly rocks, man, I just could not get quick traction. And of course, right here, Keaton's on my butt. And I was like, oh man, we gotta keep going. I did think it was really interesting how we move in and out of really rocky sections to really flowy sections to really rocky sections and then back in and out. And because this was an old mine, I'm guessing that's kind of part of it, just a lot of mineral deposits being moved around as water is in and out. But man, I'm telling you, dude, this trail, the way they laid it out, this is why after last year, I loved this event so much. I made that mistake because I could hear a bike coming back up on me, but there had been a big space before I thought that Keaton was with me. And it turns out I saw a blue number plate from a rider a few rows back, and I believe that that was Jaden back from road 24 catching me. So dude been passing us all day. Of course, look, I make another mistake there because of Jaden. No, obviously not Jaden's fault. It's my own dang fault for making the mistake. And Keaton is right there. So he's been doing a great job staying on my dust and pushing towards the end. I definitely made a few enemies probably earlier in the day when I was trying to get past riders, but I do try to say thank you to any rider that lets me by. Obviously, if they're either being slow or you can tell that they're trying to speed up and holding me up more than, well, than I believe is necessary because of the situation being that this is an Enduro and I have caught them, then I probably say things that I don't need to be saying to people in public. And we're going to call me out when we do the race recap for sure here in the future. Coming up, though, I believe is a really cool building from back in the day when this was a mine here up on our right. Yeah, there it is. So it's just neat. Like little stuff like this is kind of strewn about the entire area. We are less than 2 miles from the end, guys. Get ready. heard that there were some railroad tracks that we were going to have to cross, and there they are. And of course, I missed the log that was just to the left of my front tire, because what I wanted to do was hit that and just kind of pop up and over. And so too much weight on the front end. I didn't get a chance to get my front end all the way over both of the rails, which obviously would have been the smoother and much sexier way to have done that. But that's not what happened. And of course, I was like, meh, in my helmet. And I'm sure that most of you guys are too when you make mistakes or do something you don't want to do. But we have to watch the footage. We've got to remember it in time and just say, next time, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to do a little bit better. Guys, we are almost there. Look at that flow. It just is so much fun. One big win on the day is that the clutch did not boil over in the last test, and I did not bonk or get cramps. I even almost had energy throughout the entire day. A lot of people were asking how I did that. In the long run, it really comes down to nutrition and hydration strategy. It wasn't just the fact of all the training and all the lack of riding that I've had. Everybody's like, how much were you riding during the break? I got a chance to ride twice during the break. So I was not able to attack the way that I was in this test because I did a bunch of riding. I made sure that my nutrition and my hydration strategy were on point for the entire day. Make sure you search Seat Time Nutrition in Google or any search browser and you will see what I do on the day. Huge thanks to Morgan at Highland Cycles for all the help with the clutch work and the fan, getting the tusk and all that stuff sorted out. Of course, I did the work, but in the long run, I asked that guy so many questions. As well, thank you to all of you guys out there in the Instagram and internet world, because when I'm working on all these things and posting about how the bike's doing, how I'm doing, questions that I have, things I don't like but that I want your help on, you always have feedback for me and you help me a ton. So I just really appreciate that, guys, for being a part of the Seat Time community and helping all of us grow and get a little bit smarter and just becoming better riders and better mechanics. As we're creeping our way towards the end of this test section, what did you guys think about this section? For an A-only section, does it look like something that you would expect? Does it seem too easy? Does it seem too hard? What were your thoughts on the day? Again, I'm gonna have a race recap That's going to be next week. So in case you haven't noticed, when I put out a full test, I try to do that quickly after the race so that we could satiate those that are looking for race footage. That's always going to have kind of a GoPro POV thumbnail. The race recap, I'm typically going to have a third-person footage, something taken by Mac Feint on the thumbnail. So you're going to be able to see those two differences. That is what you're going to want to look for between what is going to be the POV footage and then, of course, the full entire race recap. I actually remembered this spot from last year. Hey, thank you very much, because I made a bobble right here and it kind of fell off to the right. This time I was like, pinch the bike, stand up, just let the bike do the thing and go. And you can see the front end kind of did ping around just a little bit. It took me a while to get my suspension figured out on the day. Once we got here, I did feel much more comfortable, but I'll tell you guys about how that went in each test section and how I was adjusting the suspension each time in the full race recap. So make sure you stay around for next week when that comes out. Subscribe. Holy crap, guys, we did it. So I wound up 28th overall in this test and about 38th overall on the day. Again, we'll talk about all of that in the race recap. Hans Neff, who won the 45A class and this test section because he won all of them, beat me by 31 seconds here. I'm pooped, guys. Man, get ready. We're going to get some more seat time. Race recap out soon. Thanks. Peace.